Good afternoon, Sudeep. How are you doing?
Hey, Vipin, how are you?
Good, good, good.
All well. Good to see you after a long time.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, doing well. Doing absolutely well. Well, it's difficult to say well because when so many of your colleagues have tested positive. So far so good.
And as far as everybody is keeping healthy and cheerful, I think it'll pass.
Yeah, right. What about
Absolutely.
you?
All well so far, except for I would say not much change in the daily busy schedule, except for no flying, no travel, and getting digitally fixated to, let's say, certain locations in and around house and office.
Yeah, that's the life it's going to be for at least next few months or maybe a year or maybe longer. We never know. But yeah, I think that's what the COVID has brought us all into. And
Yep.
so I think, do you miss the flying? Do you miss the airport and planes?
On an honest answer, I do. Yeah. I think one of the things that I miss is on longer flights. There is a kind of a sense of basically stepping back from your daily routines. I mean, if you fly from here to San Francisco, then those 11 hours are kind of taking one step back, and you can work for maybe 5-6 hours, but beyond that you can't work. So you miss those moments also of interaction, networking on airports. So I think the whole human to human interaction is something which personally I certainly miss face to face. Yes.
Right.
I can see already the online etiquettes have been updated. So from 3:45 till 4 o'clock, we had this informal networking. That's what the agenda says.
That's correct. That's what I also saw. We are yet to see the Vidhya or Edith join. Vidya is there. Hi, Vidya.
Hi, Sudeep. Welcome,
see you.
everyone. I'll join you in a few minutes
Hi,
when we
Vidya.
get started.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
Hello,
afternoon.
Edith.
Hello, everyone. I see lots of familiar faces. Hi, Gopi. Hello, Vipin. Hello, Edith. There I see you.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Good afternoon.
Hello, Vidhya.
Good afternoon,
Good to see
Ambassador.
you.
Welcome.
Hi.
Good afternoon,
Hi,
Ambassador.
everyone.
Hello.
Hi,
So I
everyone.
think it's a good,
Hello,
yes,
Joseph.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good to see you all.
we're all amongst friends. So it's a good moment to start. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vidhya Sampath. I'm from the Netherlands India Chamber of Commerce, as well as from Tata Consultancy Services, and my pleasure to be your moderator today. Very warm welcome to you. And first of all, let me thank you for your unwavering support as we all went online with all NICCT events in this extraordinary year. And thank you again for joining us today. So every time there's been a crisis in modern history, a new variation on the word normal was coined. After the First World War, it was normalcy, because it seems when we can no longer take normality, stability, predictability for granted, these words are coined. The new normal was coined in 2009 after the last global financial crisis. So with this time, I think the world is coming to terms with the fact that we don't only will have to live the new normal, but we have to construct it. Because it's just not the pandemic. There's climate change, there's threat to food security, global inequality, conflicts, forced migrations. And now we realize that these lead to truly global consequences, that no one is exempt from them. But we also know that we've got powerful new tools like digital technology. So if new normal is an existential necessity and not a choice anymore, then what must this new normal look like? And that's exactly what we'd like to speak about today. And we have a truly fantastic group of speakers. And I'd like to warmly welcome all of them on behalf of NICCT and our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are today at full capacity that this online platform allows, 250 people. The spirit of discussion and debate is alive and well in the Netherlands-India business corridor. And I, for one, am happy about that. To make this a pleasant experience for all of us, a couple of house rules. Please mute yourself and turn off your webcam unless requested otherwise and unless you're a speaker. This will help us keep the environment pleasant for all of us without any sound interference. Please post your questions in the chat box. We'll try to accommodate as many as possible. But by all means, please don't hesitate to share your thoughts, your comments, your burning desires on the topic in the chat box. We'd appreciate it if you stay for the entire debate, but if you have to leave, and we understand that you'll feel devastated to do so, but no farewell or explanation is required. We'll miss you, but we understand. That way we don't have to scroll a lot in the chat box as well. So thank you for that. There will be a couple of online polls during the session, and the instructions to join, you just join one of them, will come up on your screen. Please do participate. There won't be a lot of time, so post in your answers quickly. With that said, I'd like to mark that opportunities, introspection, challenges, and connections scored highly in our word cloud as to what the new normal will look like, and let's just go ahead and talk about it. I'd like to hand over now to Edith Nordmann, our chairman, to say a couple of words.
Thank you very much, Vidhya. Honorable Excellencies, corporate leaders, representatives of our patron members, NICCT members and guests, dear ladies and gentlemen. As chairman of NICCT, I am honored and delighted to welcome you to the Netherlands India Business Meet 2020. This edition of NIBM is a very special event. It is our first full online NIBM edition with the biggest number of attendees ever. On top of that, this is a truly bilateral event with not only attendees from the Netherlands and India alike, but also with fantastic speakers from academia, government, the business community, big corporates and high-level representatives of SMEs, all gathered here today to discuss with each other and with you how operating in the new normal has already changed and will change the future of business and policy for the Netherlands-India corridor. We have 3 very interesting sessions for you this afternoon, in which inspiring leaders will share their views and insights with you to inform and inspire you. They are all equally interesting and relevant for you, as you are all, one way or another, active in the Netherlands-India corridor. Stay with us this afternoon. I promise you, you will not regret it, as we and our highly esteemed speakers will give you insights on how business, government, and political leaders in their professional capacity, as well as individuals, view the new normal and your and our future. This pandemic is challenging our world in so many ways, but due to online opportunities and the solidarity between the countries and individuals, view the new normal and it also gives us the opportunity to offer you such a special, truly bilateral event. A special thanks to our dedicated patron members, HCL, TCS, KPMG, and Gateway Group, without whom all of what NICCT does would not be possible. Their constant support also during these challenging times is invaluable and highly appreciated. Their input, time, support, and efforts are limitless, all to the sole benefit of the members of NICCT. I would like to take the opportunity to give a special thanks to my team members, the board members of NICCT, Ms. Vidhya Sampath, Mr. Sudeep Lahiri, Ms. Namita Krul, Mr. Rajiv Mehra, Mr. Albert Waller, and Mr. Jelke Schipper, and Mr. Erwin Cedars, and last but not least, Patricia de Bordes, without whose tireless efforts this would all not be possible. Before giving the word back to Vidhya, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your strong support of NICCT and for being here today with us. I wish you a wonderful, insightful, and inspirational NIBM, and thank you all for joining us today. Vidhya, I'll hand it over to you in your great hands.
Thank you very much, Edith. We are very aware that Ms. Mona Keizer, the State Secretary for Economic Affairs and Climate Policy for the Netherlands, has very limited time. She's taken time out of her holiday to be with us. So I'm immediately going to jump to her and request her to speak. Quick word on Mona Keizer, who has had a long and exemplary career serving at grassroots levels in several local municipal councils. She became a member of parliament in 2012 for the CDA, with policy responsibility for chronic care for older and disabled people, and later became the spokesperson for asylum, migration, and integration policy. Her portfolio today is no less complex or critical. Since 2017, she's been the State Secretary for Economic Affairs and Climate Policy in the third Rutte government. Her key focus today is on economic recovery and digital transformation, especially as a motive for this. She will have a key role in defining the face of the new normal. And so without further ado, I invite Mona Keizer to take the word. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. Well, I heard you talk about the new normal, but I think it's a pity we can't meet in person. Of course, it's necessary to take the measures we did, but now after a few months calling in from our homes, we also see the downside of things. But on the other hand, it makes it possible to talk to each other now and to make sure that our good cooperation between India and the Netherlands isn't stopped because of the fact we can't get on a plane. So I'm very happy to meet with you now as we do at this moment. And a few of you talked about the difficult, extraordinary times we're in, and that's completely true. Especially now in the Netherlands, where we are in what you could call a second wave because of the increase of cases of people who get infected with corona. And businesses, large and small, are suffering. We know that. We see that every day. International trade is suffering, of course, too. Our airlines are suffering. Nevertheless, I try to meet with entrepreneurs, digital or in real life. And because of the fact that we really try to hammer the virus down now, this week and the last week, I wasn't capable. It wasn't possible to do so. But I'm determined to go back and meet them very quickly after the reproduction factor is below 1 again. I feel for those entrepreneurs, especially those whose businesses are connected with the fact that we people connect. It's very difficult when you're in that kind of business. But despite all the problems, we saw some positive things too. Who could have imagined that within a few days, sometimes, people started working from home, and the digitalization and innovative businesses helped us to do so. So that's a very good thing. And because of this digitalization, we can talk today now too. So that's the advantage. That's the upside of things. It brings us a lot of opportunities. And the reason why I responded positive to the request to talk to you this afternoon was because just over a year ago, I visited India together with our Queen and King. And during this visit, I met with Prime Minister Modi and Minister Vardhan, and we walked over the Tech Summit Expo. And there I was able to meet various very innovative entrepreneurs, and it's still mind-blowing when you see what they do. I was impressed by the Tannery project for the Clean Ganga and the research into new technology done by Shell India and presented by Mr. Prasad. So that was very inspiring, and today we are catching up again and meet each other again and talk to each other again. To even further improve our relations, we decided to continue our cooperation through the, the WA agenda, and that's Hindi for great, I remembered. And in this agenda, we focus on key technologies like artificial intelligence. So we can still exchange knowledge, and that's important because one of the things, one of the downsides of meeting digital is that the creative process isn't going as smoothly as it does when we're together with each other in a room. But until the moment that we can do so again, it's important to stay in contact. So we are bringing entrepreneurs in our countries closer together on this agenda through Global Stars initiative. Our call with India facilitates Dutch SMEs and their partners in India to co-create solutions for societal challenges on water, agriculture, and on health. So let us all keep up that good work. And although we face a lot of uncertainty, I am happy that we continue our cooperation. Smart agriculture, cleaning Indian drains and waterways, and in health. So I hope this webinar will bring you all close together. I wish you a very successful and inspiring day. And yes, it's a holiday week here in the Netherlands. But this meeting online isn't something that crosses with my private holiday plans, because I don't have any, because we stay at home. It's part of my business and my agenda today. So thank you very much for the invitation to speak. Thank you very much for your attention, and good luck to you all today in this meeting, and please stay healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Kaiser, for your inspiring words and your kind words. And if I may say so, your Hindi pronunciation was excellent. So thank you very much for joining. I wish you a great continuation of your holiday, and I have no doubt that we'll meet again, possibly with the same audience, and we look forward to that. Thank you very much.
I hope so too. Goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to introduce to you someone who possibly doesn't require much introduction to this audience. I've had the pleasure of introducing Ambassador Rajamoni as a speaker many times to an NICCT audience, and I have to think, what should I say? What we can say is that Ambassador has had an incredibly vibrant tenure as Ambassador of India to the Netherlands since 2017, with many high-level state visits back and forth. He leaves us a legacy of knowledge with 2 books that he authored. He will be remembered fondly because we all know he is winding up his tenure here shortly. He will be remembered as a colorful person and a true ambassador of all that is good and worthwhile about our 2 countries collaborating. Ambassador, can I invite you to share your thoughts on the new normal? I think you have to unmute yourself, Ambassador.
Thank you, Vidhya. President of the NICCT, Edith Nordmann, Ambassador Martin Vandenberg, whom I see from Delhi. Hi, Martin. Lovely to see you again. Good afternoon to all friends here in the Netherlands. Good evening to friends in India. It's truly a great pleasure to be part of NIBM once again, and I'm grateful for this invitation to address all of you. As Vidhya just mentioned, this is probably going to be my last NIBM as Ambassador of India. I finished my tenure in November, and I will return to India in December. It has truly been a great pleasure knowing all of you and working closely together with all of you over the last 3.5 years. This is my 4th NIBM, I think, not to mention the many other NICCT functions I've been part of. So congratulations on a great job done, and congratulations on this sort of, what did you call it, completely online NIBM, which features a much wider set of speakers and topics than ever before. And that truly, I think, is the new normal. On one hand, we are all forced to adopt technology and to interact through online means such as this. It limits us in some ways. State Secretary Mona Kaisa just now said it still is not the same as meeting in person, and we all agree on that. But at the same time, it provides you opportunities to bring together people from all over the world in a manner which never existed before. You just have to find their time. They don't have to fly down to the Netherlands for a meeting like this, and people do not have to go to India for delegations or for trade visits. So it is up to all of us to see what is the best that we can make out of this scenario, of this situation. But anyway, I begin by stating that what we are doing right now is the new normal, and congratulating NICCT for riding the curve and being on top of technology and the latest means of interaction and communication. Friends, I think all of you would want me to say something about the COVID situation in India. And you would all know that India is now number 2 in the world in terms of infections. India's total as of yesterday was about 7.5 million infections, a very, very formidable number. But what you need to keep in mind is the fact that we are a country of 1.3 billion people. For every 1 million citizens, only about 5,500 are infected with corona in India. India has one of the highest rates of recovery anywhere in the world. About 6.8 million out of the 7.5 million have already recovered. And there is a continuous increase in the national recovery rate, which stands now at 88.81%, fast approaching 89%. Also, India's fatality rate is amongst the lowest in the world. It is at 83 for every 1 million citizen in India, while in many countries of the world, it is around 600. Yesterday, in the televised address to the nation, the 7th such address by the Prime Minister pointed out how India has focused on protecting the lives of its citizens, even as it has opened up the economy and tried to keep the engine of business moving. The Indian economy has definitely been impacted by the coronavirus, as all parts of the world. Sectors such as industry, manufacturing, travel, tourism, and hospitality have been impacted severely. At the same time, the bright side, the one more bad detail of recent times, we had in the last quarter a double-digit contraction, 23.9% minus. However, the latest quarterly estimates of GDP released by the National Statistical Office shows that the gross value added from agriculture, forestry, and fishing grew by 3.4% in April-June 2020 over the same period last year. The pandemic has also provided enormous opportunities to our IT companies. We know TCS and HCL and many others are here, as well as to people in the telecommunication space. Reliance Jio has been much in the news, and to all companies which are highly digitalized. I will speak about some more of them a little later. The Indian government entered the Unlock India phase from June 1st with a phased resumption of services and businesses. And throughout this crisis period, the government has taken a number of policy measures, both short-term and long-term, in a calibrated manner to reinvigorate the economy. A comprehensive package of incentives have also been announced by the government. Moreover, the government has not been daunted by this crisis. Rather, it has taken it up as a challenge and sought to liberalize the economy even further. It has announced increased foreign direct investment in defense from 49% to 74%. And as a result, and it has announced a number of measures to facilitate smoother flow of investments into India. As a result of this, in the first 5 months, FDI into India have hit a record high, despite the overall contraction in the economy. July-August alone has brought over $20 billion of FDI. Total FDI inflows surged from 11.51 billion between April and June to 35.73 billion by the end of August. Equity FDI more than quadrupled from 6.5 billion between April and June to 27.1 billion by August, 16% higher than the first 5 months of 2019-20. To put that in context, India received only $50 billion in equity FDI in 2019-20 before the pandemic. So this growth and the spurt in investments shows the long-term confidence that the business community of the world has in India, in its future and its potential, despite the setbacks which have been caused by the crisis on the health front, on the economic front. The increased FDI is also a result of FDI policy reforms, investment facilitation, and tremendous effort to improve the ease of doing business. Many of the global investors like Google, Facebook, and Amazon are the leaders in investments in India. And in particular, startups are seeing a large amount of capital infusion. In September, Byju's, an Indian education technology firm, raised $500 million in a new round of funding. This move pushed the company's valuation to $10.8 billion. Unacademy, an EdTech platform, raised $150 million, boosting its valuation to $1.45 billion. Unacademy helps students prepare for competitive exams and for those who are pursuing graduate level courses, in case any of you are wondering what this firm is all about. To attract investments in India, as I said earlier, a high-level empowered group of secretaries, chaired by the cabinet secretary himself, has been set up by the government. Project development cells have been set up in every ministry and department. In fact, they have been writing to us, asking for proposals, asking for suggestions on what more can be done on the policy front, so that the government can look at what further change has to be brought about in its policies and procedures. And we have been, in turn, reaching out to business leaders from the Netherlands with major investments in India and with the potential of major investments in India to find out what ideas they have, what suggestions they have, and what kind of problems they face and how these problems can be fixed. The technological means of communication has been adopted not just for webinars of this nature, but also in high-level interaction between the two governments. Our two ministers of trade have spoken to each other on phone. Our two foreign ministers have spoken to each other on phone. As this meeting happens, we are discussing the feasibility of a virtual summit between the two prime ministers, details to be finalized later. And just this morning, there was a meeting of the Joint Working Group on Water and Infrastructure, which was an online meeting between the two sides. Like embassies all over the world, we in the embassy here in the Netherlands have also rapidly shifted to online means, and we have organized throughout this pandemic period a number of webinars which include on topics like Indian economy and COVID with the collaboration of Invest India, flattening the corona curve, the success of Kerala with the state government and other parties in Kerala, a webinar on India's economic outlook 2020-21 with CII, redefining the fintech experience with FICCI, and on emerging partnership in digital health with Invest India, the Embassy of Netherlands in India, and Primus Partners. On digital health, let me also mention that in the middle of the pandemic, on August 15th, the Indian government has launched a national digital health initiative, something in which we understand the Netherlands is a world leader and is much ahead of India in introducing this digital health. And it's an area where we see great potential for learning from each other, for collaboration, as well as for bringing startups of the two countries together. Friends, one of the mantras in the Netherlands and in many parts of the world today is the term safe interdependencies. One of the lessons we have learned from the COVID crisis is that you cannot afford to be over-dependent upon any one particular economy. And it would be useful for industries to diversify their sources of supply. This is happening across the world. India is happy and ready to offer itself as an opportunity for any company looking to diversify its supply chains, and we are ready to go an extra mile to facilitate their entry into India, the establishment of their operations in India. And we think Indian markets' internal size, the availability of skilled manpower, and our digital technical expertise makes us an ideal market for not just future investment, but for win-win solutions and future growth. To conclude, as far as India-Netherlands relations are concerned, I think the sky is the limit. We still have only started our journey. There is no setback because of the pandemic. If at all there is a setback, it is temporary. The basic principle that Dutch strengths match India's needs stand. The State Secretary spoke about the VA agenda, which I understand also stands for water, agriculture, and health. These will remain very key and core areas for collaboration in future. The pandemic has raised the importance of collaboration in the field of health even further. Agricultural technology, wastewater management, ports, inland waterways, shipping, tourism, smart cities, technology, innovation, and science and technology, which the State Secretary supervises, all are areas with great potential for the future. We are extremely happy that a company like Philips, which is a company which has had a long record of contributing to the Indian economy, has already announced a number of investments and is stepping up its manufacturing capabilities in India as part of its overall global growth in the context of pandemic. We hope Philips will expand their activities even further and make India a hub for the manufacturing of medical equipment. And similarly, more and more Dutch companies will find it opportune and in their benefit to come to India to partner with Indian industry and to not just provide the needs of the Indian market, but use India as a base to provide the needs of the global market. I thank you all for listening to me very patiently. I wish the discussions at the NIBM the very best, and I hope to meet all of you either digitally or physically whenever the COVID circumstances permit. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's as exhaustive as ever, your picture about India and the fact that there is still great amount of investment and, like you put it, long-term confidence. I'm going to, in the interest of time, immediately jump to our next honored speaker, Excellency Mr. Martin van den Berg, Ambassador of the Netherlands to India this time. He has served earlier as Director General at the Foreign Economic Relations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Also been involved in the trade sector as part of the Working Group for Technology Transfer at the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development. So with his knowledge on economics and trade, we'd like to invite him, plus his unique position on the ground in India, to share his thoughts. Ambassador van den Berg, to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure to join you in discussions, and always good to see so many well-known faces. And Venu, I think I can hardly think about a meeting or event Netherlands-India without you after 1 December. How do we manage that? So it's always good to have you and to have, in a way, together a joint mission, strengthening...
As a free citizen. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's always, I think, we have a joint mission together, strengthening ties between India and the Netherlands. And I think, she also said, there are very, very strong ties. And there are, again, also many opportunities to further increase those ties. Talking about the new normal, yeah, what is exactly the new normal? For me, it's living with the virus for some time, living with a lot of uncertainty, and living in a virtual/digital world. And I think also what we are doing at the moment. It's also dealing with probably not only a short-term impact, which we will see in the world, in the Netherlands, in Europe, but definitely also in India. Venu already said something about the economy of India, badly hit, probably this year a contraction of about 10%, but still a lot of uncertainty. But next year, hopefully recovery of 5, 8, 9% remains to see. But of course, and that has a huge impact on a society, on an economy, which we will see at the moment. Not only, as I said, on the short term, but definitely also on the long run. As we speak about the so-called long-term scars on the global economy, but also on the Indian economy. We will see on productivity, on health issues, on inequality. But also, I think looking to the new normal is also much a positive side. I think there are also lots of opportunities. Use this crisis for all the opportunities. Never waste a crisis, as we say. And there are a lot of opportunities. Also because the Indian government has taken the initiative to use this crisis for larger reforms. We see with the new farm bills, we see it in the energy sector, in the labor markets, and also in the dialogue, the discussion we have with the Indian government on so many levels, on the union government, definitely also with several state governments. How can we use this crisis to further strengthen, but also facilitate or fast track all kind of reforms, all kind of investments? We all work, India and the Netherlands, on the basis of sustainable development goals, looking for opportunities, connecting to societal challenges, also as our Secretary of State, Monica, has told us. And we are really looking with the larger companies, but also startups, where do we see challenge in our society? Very much focus in our Dutch-India ties on water challenges, on agricultural challenges, healthcare, energy transition. Where do we see challenges and can turn that into business opportunities? That requires, of course, companies who are looking for those opportunities. It requires new innovations, technologies. So there's a close dialogue with the technology institutions, but it also definitely needs policies, government policies on the union level, on the state level. And with this so-called three parties, the government, technology institutions, and the companies, we have a very intensive dialogue to see to those opportunities and turn those opportunities in business. And I think that's important, because to achieve sustainable development goals, we do need private investment. We do need private investors. And this crisis is very much an opportunity to having this opportunity to together make these challenges into a business opportunity. So there are so many good opportunities, so many good dialogues going on. So always happy to, as an embassy in our network all over India, to assist.
Never killed nobody, toch?
Excuse me, kindly mute yourself, whoever it is whose mic is on. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
please go on, Ambassador.
It's a sentence we hear very often in virtual meetings.
Yes,
Please
I'm afraid so.
mute your mic. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Those sentences we all very familiar with in these days, but so that's okay. So I think there is, again, on the one hand, a crisis, on the other hand, really opportunities, and let's take those opportunities. I think a good example, for example, is TCS Spaceport in Amsterdam, to create a kind of an ecosystem very relevant in those digital times, to assist digital transformation with people, with companies. And I think it's a very important initiative of TCS in Amsterdam, with startups, with technology partners. And this digital transformation we need in so many areas, whether it's in health, whether it's in agriculture. So again, I really would like to conclude, because I think so many more speakers waiting. Let's take those opportunities. Let's use this time to fast track all kind of relevant societal changes together between government, technology partners, and companies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I would have loved to ask a couple of questions. Only in the interest of time, I need to move on, and perhaps later we can come back to you. Our next speakers, I think it's also very interesting to note that opportunity is what came up in our word cloud, as well as in the story that you're saying, and Ambassador Rajmuni also mentioned. So I'd like to move on to 4 representatives of business who are in our speaker lineup for this panel. And perhaps I can start with Mr. Raymond Timmer, who's senior partner and head of strategy and operations with KPMG. He has had experience of a long time in financial and strategic consulting at KPMG. And also he has had a number of years of experience in the merger and acquisitions area, growth and restructuring. So we had spoken earlier, and he had mentioned also some interesting ideas around supply chain. So I'd like to actually invite Mr. Timmer to share his ideas, if he's there.
I'm definitely here. I hope you can hear me.
Welcome.
Thank you, Vidhya. Welcome. Thank you very much. So let's get back to the theme of today, the new normal. And you see me sitting here in this little room. It's about 20 square meters, and I had to lock the door because otherwise my young kids might actually run in and sort of assault me with laser rifles and these kind of things. So the new normal encloses a lot of things in my view. And one of the words that I was actually missing a little bit in the word cloud that we had in the beginning of the session is the word reset. And I'll get to why I find that such an important word. A lot of things, of course, have changed over the last couple of months, and that's both personally, as I just mentioned. I basically have the personal situation that I actually work in the Netherlands, but my family lives in Germany, and I was commuting a lot. And actually, the last 6 months I've been in Germany more than I ever was, and I speak to my family and friends mainly over FaceTime and Skype. And these are one of the things that you actually see changing, and has quite an impact. I also see that with my Indian colleagues in the team and within KPMG, not being able to go back for holidays to see their families in certain periods. So it has quite an impact personally, but especially also on the economy and all sides of society. While not ignoring sort of all the adverse effect it has on the economy and also especially on people's health, I also see this as a period where you can have a proper look at your life and at your organization. And I'll park the personal side of it, because I think we're all reassessing the balance between remote working and being in our physical offices. But especially the organizational side of things is quite interesting. The new normal, as we call it, changes a lot of things, a couple of vital aspects of doing business. And it changes the way we interact with our clients. It changes the way we deliver our products and services. And these changes actually go relatively far. In my view, we live in the age of the customer. You have seen in the last sort of years already, due to increased transparency and information democracy, connectivity, that the balance of power between organizations and customers has been changing. And in my view, everything that you would consider now in terms of dealing with the new normal should be extremely customer centric. Sort of that's the thing I would like to start off with. What we do see is that a lot of companies actually are already thinking about taking this period in time to look at their strategy, reiterating their business model, their operating models, in parallel digitizing rapidly. And this is triggered by the impact of COVID. And we did quite some in-depth research on this over the summer. So we spoke to more than 1,000 C-level captains of industry across the world, and a couple of things that the topics that they will address in the next couple of months, basically at the short term, is one, it's a relatively open door, of course, the loss of revenues in many sectors, but also surprisingly, more than 40% mentioned increased security risks and dangers. And at the same level, sort of 40% mentioned supply chain disruption to even breakdowns. And that includes, for instance, new channels to the market that are required, or modified service delivery arrangements to accommodate health and safety requirements, for instance. And I would like to zoom in a little bit on that in a second. The same research actually showed that only 20% of companies actually have a strategy in place to deal with COVID. 2/3 are actually actively working on it and assessing what they should do. But a lot of them are just not ready yet to deal with the short-term consequences of COVID. So for the sake of this audience, I would like to focus a little bit on the supply chain. There are a couple of trends that we see that have a relatively big impact also on the corridor between India and the Netherlands. And the first one is the shift in global to regional. And it's basically, in my view, a trade-off between cost and resilience. And I can give one or two examples. For instance, Sun Pharma, a large Indian pharma company, they actually created more manufacturing capacity and therefore security of supply in Europe, which is a direct response to governments wanting a sort of an additional security in medical supplies. That's a very interesting one. And this trend is also mirrored, in my view, by the Indian government's marketing push to consider India as an alternative for instance, manufacturing and sourcing from a country like China. Companies are actively seeking to de-risk supply chains from geopolitics. And I think India plays potentially a very important role in this for the Netherlands, given the long-term partnerships and the supply security that you can realize with it. The second trend I want to highlight is the shift from offline to online. And that's basically, we're all sitting at home. You see a lot of e-commerce sort of emerging. And it forces companies actually to refocus and re-engineer their supply chain. And an example here is, for instance, Essex, that completely took control over the e-commerce supply chain by insourcing previously outsourced distribution centers. This is a small example of getting your hands on the actual supply chain. Another aspect of this is, of course, it's in the switch to online already, digitization, for instance, applying much more robotics to be less people dependent, but on the other hand, also ensuring a healthier and safer work environment. And the growth in online really makes you rethink basically, warehousing, logistics, last mile distribution. There's an extreme fight for good locations going on at the moment, and you need to be on top of that. And the third and last.
Let me just stop you there for a second, because you've given us a lot to chew on, even with economic nationalism, which you touched upon, and a sort of how does one plan for a never normal scenario, maybe, which is coming at us? Do you diversify? How do you reduce dependencies, hold stock, etc., etc.? So many, and you brought up digital. So if I may just also bring in, perhaps, if you would hold your thought for a minute, and we can go to one of our IT companies who are also on the panel and let them come in with their thoughts on this. Maybe at this point, I can bring in Sudeep Lairi, who's from HCL, and he heads the financial services groups. And he's responsible for, with 20 years in the European market, also for growing HCL in Europe, managing HCL's top financial services customers. So if digitization and automation are not just optional for a few operational processes, it needs to be more pervasive in all aspects of business, as Raymond was trying to, I think, point out. What would you say, Sudeep, would be, let's say, a new normal, and maybe in your sector, a new normal bank? What would it look like?
Yeah, Vidya, firstly, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Very good. So firstly, thanks a lot, Vidya. As always, you're doing a wonderful job. So my compliment to you. And I would like to echo your thoughts about Ambassador Venu Rajamani. He has been a great support to all of us. And Ambassador Sir, you would be truly missed. And definitely we will leverage your knowledge and expertise as we move into the next phase of in the COVID era. So Vidya, I think firstly, there have been a very excellent thoughts and perspectives being shared by many of the speakers. I think we being an IT company, of course, we look at the various industries because we deliver IT industry. So how the industry performs, that has a direct impact in our business. And you may know that from an Indian IT company perspective, if you look at top 10 companies or maybe top 6 or 7 companies who are around more than $2 billion annual revenue, more than 50% revenue comes from 2 industries, and that is financial service and manufacturing. And these 2 industries have been, if not majorly hit, as when you compare with some of the industries like travel and hospitalities or airlines, but it has been significantly hit. It is not on the other side of the spectrum like life sciences or healthcare or insurance, who are kind of almost neutral. But if you look at the financial results of all the top IT companies, top 3 or 4, being HCL, we have announced the result last week, and some of our peers. I think this quarter we have kind of posted quite a significant growth, and all of us have beaten the estimates or expectation of the street. So which means that the Indian IT companies, we have been able to really innovate, and we are already kind of playing in the new normal era. And that goes back to the fact that if you look at India, being the IT backbone of the world, the total IT population is more than a couple of millions. And if you just count Indian companies, but also the global companies, Western companies, they have significant amount of delivery capability in India. And also to mention the global technology powerhouse like Microsoft or Google, they have huge amount of R&D centers in India. And the large banks, be it Wall Street banks, they have their own captives in India. So altogether, there have been a significant amount of people, almost more than a couple of million. They have been moved from office to home, and you don't hear any disruptions. You hear quite a stable operation. You don't hear much of noise. So I think that has been a great success story, what Indian IT industry has delivered to the world. And that is actually bringing us to the next new normal, I would call it digital workplace, where I think going forward, we will see employees will work from home. Even though we are out of this pandemic, we will definitely see that there will be significant amount of employees who will continue to work from home, because that gives much more flexibility. It allows them to work in different shifts. And also, as you know, that Indian IT industry, we take a lot of pride in being very metrics driven. And we have very carefully measuring the performance and productivity. And in fact, the productivity has gone up. So while we have moved from office to home, but productivity and the value which we deliver to the customer has gone up. So I think there is a significant amount of opportunity which is there in the space of what we call digital workplace, where we can deliver experience to the employees of our customers. So that is definitely one trend we clearly see as a part of a new normal. The second is, I think one of the speakers spoke about the domain of cybersecurity. And I think I see quite a lot of opportunities to collaborate between Netherlands, because especially in The Hague, the city of The Hague and have a lot of interest to kind of position The Hague as a city for cybersecurity, and the investment and the organizations like Hague Security Delta takes a lot of leadership position in kind of developing point of view. So cybersecurity, in my view, would be one of the big area and will be part of the new normal. I have been having some conversations with some of our customers, and what I understand is there will be significant amount of increase in the cybersecurity spend to the tune of 20 to 25%. So again, that is an area where we will see significant amount of opportunities. And
okay, thanks, Sudeep. I'll need to stop you there with apologies, because I would like to bring in the other two speakers Absolutely. Who are patiently waiting. And in fact, I mean, to sum up what you're saying is that you are seeing, and like the other speakers, opportunities, positiveness, as Mr. van der Berg said, that we're going to make, use this crisis well. I think it was Winston Churchill who talked about, making use of a good crisis. So good use of a crisis. So I see positive sentiment and hearing positive sentiment.
If you just allow me 10 seconds, I just want to mention one company in Denmark called Flying Tiger. They had 1,000 retail stores, and within 3 months, they moved into a complete e-commerce, web-driven kind of enterprise. And after 6 months, actually their sales has gone up, their customer satisfaction net promoter score has gone up, and they are handling 3 times more basket size. So all I want to say is that COVID is not just a problem, but it could be an opportunity. And I think I would like to encourage entrepreneurs to think out of the box and be innovative and get best out of it.
I'm feeling very heartened. I mean, I thought new normal, everybody's going to be worried, but I'm hearing very positive stories. I'd like to bring in Josu. Thank you so much, Sudeep. I'd like to bring in Josu now, and I'd like to ask him, I know a little bit about TCS, and I know that, there is this idea of, being agile, moving with the times, etc. And so my question is, when a crisis hits, you have to take a strong sort of a stand. Do you stay the course, watch and wait, or do you pivot explosively? And so I'd like to understand from Josu, what has shaped the new normal thinking at TCS? Can you give us some examples on the same?
Sure, Vidhya. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Vidhya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josu. Yes.
Before I answer you, maybe just few words of thanks. I think first of all to Chairman Edith, thank you and congratulations on again another phenomenal event. Great to see you that even in crisis times you know how to get things moving. Fantastic. Honorable ambassadors for your presence and support. I think really thankful to keeping our businesses live, and especially Venu Rajamani, sir, thank you so much for all your support, and you are somebody who called up every 2 months during the last 8 months to make sure that all our 3,000 employees in Netherlands are kept safe. So thank you so much for all your personal attention that you have given to us. We will really miss it, and yeah, we really hope that we will have a good future. You will have a good future post-retired life and stay engaged with us. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. So Vidhya, coming back specifically to the questions that you're asking in terms of what has been our focus, especially in this change scenario, I would put across it in 2 forms. I will look at it either from in terms of our employees' perspective, as well as I will look at from our customers' perspective, because these are the 2 main stakeholders that we really live with. Now, when it comes to employees' perspective, our distinguished speaker Sudeep already spoke about digital workplace and how people have all moved to work from home as a concept. I think we also have embraced that because we are an organization of almost 500,000 employees globally. And in a matter of hours and days, we were able to quickly transform ourselves into working from home model. And for me, I'll just tell a personal story, especially in March when we broke down, when we closed down and moved into a work from home model. I was sitting here very nervous because at the end of the day, if you look at some of the big customers of ours in the market, like an Albertine or the top banks in the market, and we are pretty much supporting their entire technology. Had we failed, and if this model did not work, the problem that this country would have seen would have been very different. And it was not easy for organizations. I mean, in India, the infrastructure was not exactly the same as what we have in Netherlands. So I had nervous moments, but credit to the humans and the credit to the organizations that all supported it. We were able to come through this crisis, and today we have proven that even in this most challenging times, we are able to come out successful. So this model of secure borderless workspaces that we have come across has really succeeded. And I'm really happy that today none of us who live in Netherlands really had to suffer because of any of the challenges that we face. So that is one aspect that I want to bring in. The second aspect is that as we move into work from home model, I really see that the way of our lives, I mean, our lives have really changed. It also means that we also need to bring in a new concept around health and fitness, because it is not the old world, but again, for us, we really need to put energy around health and fitness. As many of you know, that TCS is a proud sponsor of the Amsterdam Marathon. This is the 10th year of our sponsorship, and this is in fact the week of the marathon as well. And we were really hoping to make a great event out of the 10th year, but unfortunately, yeah, the things did not go as per plan, and we really had to switch to a virtual model, virtual marathon just a month back, when it was clear that it is not possible anymore to do an actual physical event like what we used to do. I myself was training for it. And again, last month when the news announcement came that we are going to do virtual, it is also the time when I myself got hit with COVID. And I was really heartbroken because I was thinking that I really wanted to run, I really wanted to be part of this, and I was looking forward to it. But in exactly 8 days' time, pretty much in a week or 10 days' time, I myself was able to recover. And exactly 4 weeks after that, I could do my half marathon as well, just last Sunday night. So I'm really, really happy for that situation. And the message that I would like to tell is that it is very, very important to focus on health and fitness of each and every one of us. It might be running, it might be another sport, but there's something that we really want to propagate with all our employees as well as our stakeholders and people and partners around, that please put focus on your health and fitness, because today it was COVID, tomorrow it might be something else. So we really are propagating that message and actively promoting that. And as part of the marathon, so for this year, when I did the marathon, and the half marathon last Sunday night, it was such a beautiful experience. Leading towards it, we had a campaign called This Run campaign, because most of us are sitting in front of our laptops at home. So we had a digital campaign that Vidhya and the rest of the crew in our marketing team had done. They are a fantastic team. These guys came with a digital campaign called This Run, which really started encouraging people to see those videos, to say, guys, go out and run for some time, do it alone, but do it. So this really helped us to come united into a virtual running platform. That was something that was really great. Second, another beautiful experience was that they came out with a new app where you are able to do this virtual marathon all alone, so that you are able to run on yourself and you can clock your time and speed. And you can also have your digital certificates, you can have your digital selfies, you can publish it online. So there are so many beautiful things that the team has done. And finally, one of the very, very unique things which I personally myself experienced, there was a soundtrack that the team created together with a leading DJ in Amsterdam called DJ Max, which captures 3D sound effects of all what you hear in Netherlands. You hear the sound of trams, you hear the sound of supporters cheering you, you hear the sound of the pigeons in the dam square, you hear the sounds of the ambulances. And I was running in the middle of the night with those sound beats, and I could not believe how true it looked like. So if anybody of you is interested for a virtual run, I would suggest just go to the TCS Amsterdam website, just put it on, put the music on and go for a run. You will thoroughly enjoy that experience. Believe me, when at 2 in the morning, when I actually was looking around thinking that there was actually some cyclists around or there was an ambulance around, it made me such a good feeling about it. So again, the message around employees that I want to really focus on is that digital workplace is one aspect, which is something that is extremely important for keeping our businesses running. But second thing is to make sure also the focus on health and fitness of our employees is extremely important for us. The second area that I want to again speak quickly is about.
Hurry you up, Josu.
Yeah, the second point I'll quickly close down is on the customer side. We are investing in what we call as the TCS Spaceport. Honorable Ambassador Martin already spoke about it. While it's a physical location, we are also bringing the tools, methodologies, as well as the people that are required to make it a success. Because what we realize, especially connecting to the example which Sudeep was talking about, unless and until the customers transform themselves into the new digital era, you will not be able to succeed. And the people who will succeed are those people who are quick to embrace those changes, like what NICCT did in making this event a virtual one. So we are bringing this TCS Spaceport, which is a new co-innovation facility that we're bringing for all our customers, which will ensure that customers are able to increase the pace of digital transformation that they're looking for. So with that, I conclude my few words, Vidhya. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. That's really an inspiring story as to how do you make an event with, I don't know, 50, 60,000 people participating or probably more, a public event, and how do you create an experience that is virtual? So thanks for sharing that, Josu. And I'm going to now sort of jump to Vipin because I was saving him for the last. I know Vipin is known to many of us. He's a serial entrepreneur, and if nothing else gets him going, it is startups and new ideas and innovation. And that's why I'd like to bring him in and let him talk a little bit on that angle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very aware we are running over time. We are trying to fit the program of, half a day into, a couple of hours. So please bear with me and we'll try to get back on track. Thank you for your patience. So Vipin, can I bring you in now? And I would really like to hear from you. We've heard from the rest, but how is it? There are small companies. Most of the companies are middle and small enterprises in the Netherlands and in India. So how do they pivot, and should they pivot? And if yes, what do they make use of? Where are these opportunities? So tell us something about that. First, let me also say that Vipin is a long-term supporter of NICCT. He has been the chairman of NICCT as well. We valued his term very much so. He's heading Gateway Group on strategy, execution, and results with multiple brands and presence across many countries. So Vipin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vidhya. Once again, thank you to the ambassadors, and I'll do away with the pleasantries for the moment because you're running behind time. I just want to say something that if all of us believe that this is the new normal or the next normal, I think we have to learn how to deal with it, and positivity is the only way that we can actually deal with it. So by nature, I'm an extremely positive entrepreneur, and I believe that entrepreneurs need to create opportunities in adverse conditions, especially companies such as ours who are actually operating at the cusp of the Netherlands-India cooperation. A couple of examples I'd like to give you here, Vidhya, where I do believe that the Netherlands-India cooperation in the true sense has actually brought about multiple opportunities, especially for the SME sector. One of the examples is we kind of doubled and tripled our investments in the Netherlands for innovation for the SME companies. So that's something which is interesting. By allowing these SME companies to innovate during the adverse conditions, so the moment the new normal actually starts to become normal again, they would be riding a wave of competitive edge vis-a-vis actually starting to do their investments. So we got a number of international financial investments together, and we launched our own fund for the SMEs within the Netherlands and in fact in Europe. It's called the COVID Innovation Fund. And so far we've given out something like 10-15 million out of that fund towards, let's say, the Dutch and other European companies who want to innovate on technology, new workspaces, and almost all of the areas which are mentioned by earlier speakers, whether it is the last mile delivery, whether it is contactless, zero touch logistics, whether it's basically dealing with medical intelligence, where we need to suddenly think of smart bed technologies because COVID is basically putting a lot of pressure on the healthcare systems and so on and so forth. So one thing is the Netherlands-India corridor, to my opinion, has truly shown that the innovation and the speed at which India can innovate and bring about execution to this country is really much, much, much valuable. And the other esteemed speakers have also mentioned similar examples. Sudeep was mentioning the retail innovation, and I do believe the retail innovation once again presents so many opportunities. One can look at the negative side of COVID for travel, tourism, event locations, but one can also say that, well, we have 6 months to 12 months of period where we need to create a new form of revenue generation. And we are supporting some of these organizations, some large organizations under the theme virtual yet real spaces. So of course we know it's virtual, but it could be real. So I want to kind of, make you visualize something, all of us who are in this session. So just imagine that there is somebody and a number of volunteers running, let's say in 2021 in Keukenhof, and all of them are wearing virtual devices like the Google Glass, and the counterparts, which are our travelers who are spread across all the other, let's say, locations worldwide, think of China, think of India, think of America, are able to get that experience sitting behind their desks in their homes with similar devices, and they would be able to communicate with a volunteer basically in these event locations. That would be a phenomenal way of bringing location independent travel tourism event. So this is something that we also started in terms of building proof of value for the Netherlands, for Belgium, but also some of the other locations like Iceland, who are completely dependent upon tourism for their large part of their economy. We call it virtual at real spaces. So outside the box has been mentioned a number of times as well today. I believe that we need to look as entrepreneurs, saving you a little bit of time with Vidhya here, but as entrepreneurs, we look at the positive opportunities that COVID is bringing about. Digital workplaces is one, but converting this digitization to opportunities for revenue generation for the mid-market, for the mid-segment is extremely important and the need of the hour today. And companies such as ours are actually playing in that field, where we are able to not just create new revenue possibilities with these themes, which I mentioned. Either it's on logistics, reverse logistics has been mentioned, even things like buying a car, especially if you look at the car sales and the leasing volumes within Europe, they've gone up in the last 6 to 9 months and nothing has gone down. And it is the need of the hour. People will be forced to use new modes of transport. People will be forced to think differently. And I believe Netherlands, India, especially because of speed of innovation, we are poised once again, despite of COVID, for an enormous growth, which will come, after the third, fourth, whatever wave is coming. I think 2021 to 2023, we'll see completely different form of economy.
Okay, so don't scare us with third and fourth wave, Vipin. But thank you for the very positive sentiment. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to apologize. We are running late, but we have to close this session now, because not only because of time management, but also because we have speakers in India for whom this is getting later and later, and we want them to get to bed on time tonight. So I have only one more thing to say. Thank you very much to everybody who participated in this. If we didn't have enough time to listen to you, my apologies, and we hope to come back to listen to you in greater detail, hopefully in the future. To Ambassador Rajmoni, if he's still there, I'd just like to say your love of swimming in Scheveningen has been recorded. So I hope wherever you're going, you have a nice beach to swim at. Thank you very much. We are now going to our next session, which is our policy session. And before that, I think you can take a quick poll. We had allocated 5 minutes, so we can do this a bit faster and move on immediately to our policy session. Thank you very much for your patience. And if you would like to vote for this new policy session poll, you can go to menti.com, use the code, etc., and move on. Okay, so immediately, without wasting too much time, I'm going to move on to our next panel. And here we actually want to now zoom into, after hearing these stories and to some extent about government policy and regulation which is supporting, we want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. We've got a fabulous lineup of people here who will speak. And our first speaker is Jakob Vonhoff. I just want to check if he is in the audience. I hope he is.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So I go ahead and introduce you, Mr. Vonhoff. He is, of course, the president of the MKB-Nederland, which is Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Association. And there's a whole lot of things to say about him. He's on the board of the Sociaal Economisch Raad of the Netherlands and board of the Labour Foundation, etc. But the thing possibly most to underline is, at the end of the day, he's an entrepreneur in heart and his kidneys, as they say in the Netherlands, ever since he started with a small van and built a cleaning services business from scratch. So, Mr. Vonhoff, I'd like you to start with simply stating very briefly a couple of points on how you view the new normal, and then we can have possibly a question after that, which I would very much enjoy. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for having me here, and it's true. I'm the president of the MKB, which is the SME representative in the Netherlands. But I'm also an owner of a cleaning company, which is a nice anecdote because once I was in a large cleaning venue, and there were some colleagues from all over the world, and I sat down to an Indian entrepreneur in cleaning, and I thought I had a big cleaning company, so I felt pretty good. So I told, we were chit-chatting, and he told me, he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I have a cleaning company in the Netherlands." He said, "How many employers do you have?" And I said, "Well, 2,000. And in the Netherlands, that's quite a big cleaning company." So I thought, well, he will be impressed. So I asked him, and I said, "How many employees do you have?" And he said, 40,000. And it was immediately apparent to me that in India, everything is bigger, and there's a lot of opportunities. So that's really nice that I can be here. But I also want to make one small remark before we go to the panel discussion, and that's I heard a lot of in the last session. I heard a lot of optimistic people telling us about a brave new world after COVID, the new normal, online. But I represent a lot of entrepreneurs that are losing, which are really scared about what's going to happen to me. There's people in the street with small retail shops, horeca, which is of course hotels and places of food and beverage. So I'm really in the now. So it's about what's happening now, and we are really trying to save as much and a lot of entrepreneurs as we can. And to do that, we really talk a lot with our Dutch government, which is, I think, one of the success factors of the Dutch way, is that we really communicate with each other, not only when it needs to be and formally, but also informally. So one of the things that we do really well in the Netherlands, and which I think we can also export to India, is our triple helix, where we are talking with the government and the employers and the employees, but also the places with the schools. So that's well, the last days, especially now when we are hit by the second wave, my priority is really in the now and trying to save as many businesses as possible. So although I believe in a brave new world, I'm a little bit stuck in the now. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I believe you commented, I think it's on your website, I picked it up from there. You said, hij heeft alles meegemaakt dat een ondernemer kan. That means you've experienced just about everything that entrepreneur can. But COVID-19, that's a different story, and that's the pain that a lot of smaller organizations are feeling. So my question to you is, I know MKB has got some plans which you've written up in a sort of COVID-19 document, which is your manifesto maybe to the policymakers. So what is the crux of it, if you had to describe it in a couple of points?
Well, that's a few things. The first is to save as many jobs for people as possible, because every entrepreneur, every business that goes bankrupt now, people lose their jobs, and before we get back to where we were, we will have a lot of problems also in the social and in the unemployment regions. So what we try to do is to save as many jobs, and in doing so, save as many businesses as we can. The Dutch government is, we were always really cheapskates. So we were, I don't know what the English word is right now, but
miserly.
Yeah, we didn't spend that much money. We were very careful. And that makes that we have quite a good position as it goes as far as our treasury. So we don't have much debt, and we can really invest now in our economy. So we ask our government to do just that. Maybe make a little more debts, but well, we think that's not that important. But to help entrepreneurs, especially those who don't have a business now because of the second wave. There are a lot of sectors in our economy that are really closed down, where entrepreneurs don't earn a dime, but they still have costs. And what we are trying to do is try to find a way to help them with those costs that they can't avoid, by rent and capital cost of machines and labor costs. So that's our first priority. And the next priority is when entrepreneurs can't make it in the short term, let's try to save that much that they can start again when COVID is gone, or when the measures of our government are gone. So what we now are trying to do is to save the infrastructure of our Dutch economy, with also small SMEs, really small entrepreneurs, single workers, but also the bigger, more strategical, interesting companies, which when we lose them might affect a whole chain. And that's what we are now doing with the Dutch government. Tomorrow we're going to negotiate again, and we hope to have an even better package than we already had, which goes to supporting workers with their wages, entrepreneurs with their fixed costs, but also making some changes in law so that entrepreneurs don't go bankrupt as fast as they used to, as they should. We have banks not asking for their money back. We don't have to pay rent. We have our Ministry of Finance that doesn't collect taxes at the moment. Of course, we have to pay them one time, but for now we have a short pause. So that's all that we are doing now to make sure that when COVID is past, we don't have an economic problem, and after that, of course, a social problem, because when all those people in the Netherlands, more than 1 million people are on that wage fund that the government has put in place, which means that a large part of their wages is paid by the government. More than 1 million people make use of that via their businesses. If we didn't do that, our unemployment rate would go way up. We now have an unemployment rate just about 5%, but if we wouldn't have done this, then it would have been 10, 11, maybe 12%, which would have an enormous impact on the trust and the way Dutch consumers act, and that would have an enormous impact on our, everything.
Thank you very much for bringing us back to reality with a big thud. But also equally, I think our audience appreciates very much the negotiations that you're doing. And most of our audience are falling into the SME sector. So I have no doubt that they are listening with great interest and appreciation to you. You mentioned the role of government, and you said, well, if government debt has to go up, it goes up. This is when the government has to act. And so to talk about this, I'd like to bring in Maria van der Heijden, because we'd had some discussions on this, the role of government, and also not forgetting that we don't have just the pandemic problem, there are other problems. So government action in building a sort of sustainable recovery then becomes very important. So I'd like to bring Maria in with some of her thoughts. She's director of MKB-Nederland. She's an inspiring lady who I have the privilege to know, connector and an entrepreneur, huge international experience. She's held positions in large companies as well as small companies, and that gives her a uniquely broad perspective on stakeholder management and governance, and also on how to incorporate sustainability when you're recovering from such a crisis. So Maria, could I ask you to contribute your thoughts to the discussion? Hello, good to see you. You need to unmute yourself, Maria. We're not able to hear you yet. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, these AirPods, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So it's clear now?
Yes, very much so. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your very nice introduction, Vidhya. Nice to meet you virtual, Jacco. And I think it's interesting. Of course, you're very busy with the now, and I like to bring in also a perspective from the future, because we have a crisis, and it hits us very hard, our society, our businesses, jobs, etc. But we also have a future, and we started 2020 with a kind of roaring 20s perspective, because we have a lot to do if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals and the climate agreement. And from that perspective, my point, what I like to bring on the table is that sustainability and inclusiveness in business is an agenda we already agreed on. And now we, since March, we have this COVID crisis, and we have a lot of funds and money available to save businesses, to save jobs. What I like to bring in is that we have to combine this with this agenda for the future. So sustainability is not a discussion anymore. It's something we have to deal with because, well, the planet has its boundaries, and we have to combine all these investments and all the money that goes into the system at the moment. We have to combine these with the challenge we have for the future. So that was the Green Deal of Europe, and we have Europe leaders. They really practice what I like to preach, and I miss this a bit in the Netherlands, to be honest, because we need a very strong government to combine the future with the challenges from this moment. And if we spend a lot of money now for the short term, and I know it's necessary, but if we don't combine it with the green and social agenda, we spend a lot of money and we have to do it again when the crisis is over. So yeah, that's my main topic. How do we have the Sustainable Development Goal agenda, the climate agreement, also in our roadmap for this moment and the coming periods.
Thanks, Maria. But just, I mean, you say that the EU has its Green Deal. The EU also, which is a good thing, and so we go towards a more sustainable future. I don't think anybody disputes that, in the Indian government also. But the EU is also talking about tariffs, which will be placed on goods and services which are produced less sustainably. If that is the case, do you think it will affect India-Netherlands trade in an adverse way?
Well, I see a lot of opportunities in the trade between India and the Netherlands if we combine these. So let me mention a few examples. We are very active from the Netherlands perspective in the circular economy. So we work together with India in a program with circular garments and textiles, because India is a very strong country with a history in spinning, weaving. So if we bring these kind of combination agenda points together, I think we can create also on that circular part a very good business together. Another one is around sustainable packaging, based on paddy straw. We have a program in India as well, because we buy the paddy straw instead of burning. There are a lot of, and there is now a lot of pollution in Delhi, for example. So if we combine these kind of activities to make circular products out of this straw, farmers have a better income, there's less pollution, and we create circular, sustainable consumption. So with these kind of examples, you can see that you can combine businesses as well, although there's a COVID crisis at the moment. So I see also in sustainability a lot of business opportunities between our countries.
Okay. Let me stop there for a second with you and bring in our third speaker, because who's Harbeen Arora, who can bring us the perspective from the ground and talk to us about whether she agrees with you that there are actually opportunities in exactly the area of sustainability, which maybe entrepreneurs view as extra business costs. So Harbeen is the president of the Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, WICI. She's a multifaceted personality and a network builder. She's got huge networks of women entrepreneurs, particularly, offering them platforms for professional and personal growth. And apart from that, she's also heavily involved in the education sector. So with that, I'd like to actually bring her in and ask her the question, are there, particularly looking at also women entrepreneurs who she's working with, are there bigger opportunities, given also the extra attention that we need to pay to sustainability? And what, in any case, is the situation with SMEs in COVID and how they view the new normal? That's what we'd like to hear. Harbeen, welcome to the session. I know it's late in India, possibly.
Thank you so much.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much, Vidhya, Edith, and all the esteemed speakers, excellencies who've preceded and greatly enriched and set the tone of this conversation. Yes, indeed, you asked me, Vidhya, if I'd agree with my preceding speaker. Of course, 100%, absolutely. This is the time when we need to rethink our future, and the world has taken a break for that. And the marriage of business and sustainability, of profit and purpose with people-centric policies, this is the time to reformat whatever we've been doing. And I think one of the speakers spoke about the bold new reforms that have been taken in India, in the farm sector, in many sectors. But my attention particularly is with women's entrepreneurship. We've spoken a lot about digitalization, but really the need to join the leverage digitalization, like Vipin said as well, to create positive business opportunities. We spoke about the seamless passage of many IT companies to work in office to work from home. But what we really missed seeing the fact that who made the seamless integration and who made the seamless passage possible? It's standing on the shoulders of women who are working from home, who are teaching from home, learning from home, taking care from home, the eating from home that happens. Everything is taken care of by the queen of the house. So there's been a huge social burden on the woman in this phase. So we need to go out the extra mile to make sure that digitalization benefits her as well. And that's where the policy spectrum is going to come in, where India and the Netherlands actually can do a lot in the India-Netherlands corridor, because we have a lot of aligned value systems, like you mentioned about circular economy. India is a signatory to the Paris Accord and a signatory voluntarily to the United Nations framework of on climate as well. And we are doing a lot in renewable energy, solar energy. There's a lot happening, but we need to get 50% of our workforce, which is women, who are there, but there's no sort of targeted and tailored policy focus on women as such. And I think this is where Netherlands and India have a little problem in common. This has been pointed out by the OECD report for the Netherlands. It has also been pointed out by the McKinsey Global Institute for India, that if we can actually have targeted programs in our economic policy for business creation for women entrepreneurs, in particular in the MSME space, in the micro and small medium enterprises space, we would see an immediate doubling up of our GDP rates, not in the future, not in a decade, in the next 5 years from now. So this is the time to step into the future and walk the talk on the most neglected policy area the world over. And since we are talking in Netherlands and India, it is definitely something that both our countries can focus much more on and provide a range of policy incentives, female, funds for female entrepreneurs. I think Vipin mentioned that they had created a special fund. My request to him would be to create a special one for women entrepreneurs as well in the India-Netherlands corridor, where women from both sides can come start digital business in ag tech, ed tech, circular economy, crafts, rural livelihoods. There's a range of cyber security. There's a range of areas where women have the talent. If you look at the IT sector in India, at the entry level, 51% are women. Then there's the leaky pipeline because there are, support issues, and you come down to 30%. So there's a lot of women with talent and probably even in the Netherlands, higher educational qualifications than even the EU average. So all that's documented, but where is this whole educational talent going? And then of course, including the socially, underserved groups as well. There's a whole migrant population in the Netherlands. We have underserved sections of society in India, the rural youth. The Excellency Ambassador of India spoke about an academy and a lot of edtech platforms coming in, which have increased their billion-dollar valuations in this period. It's all wonderful, but there are policy lacuna. For instance, I'm in education as well. There are a lot of women now learning at home.
Let me stop you there, Harbeen, just to digest what you said, because there's so much in what you're saying.
Yes,
let me also congratulate you on the passion with which you speak about women entrepreneurs being part of possibly this recovery. So really, I mean, your passion is coming across to us from 10,000 kilometers away. Like Ambassador van der Berg said, that maybe we should be talking about a reset, and maybe women entrepreneurs should be part of it. But I'd like to pick up on a point that I think you were just about to make, or you just made slightly, which I think also Mr. Vonhoff referred to, which is on education. And he said quite clearly that the first priority is to save jobs. And then from job seekers, we want to, go towards being job creators. And you're talking about an educational pipeline, which maybe in the future needs to look different to be able to do this. So would you comment briefly on that? And then I'd like to go back to Mr. Vonhoff for his comments on what he's heard you and Maria say, and then we can go back to Maria.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Vidya, for asking that. The point I'm really trying to make is that I'm in the university higher education space. A lot of people, we're using online modules for learning, which are extra school curriculum, outside of the school curriculum, let's say from Khan Academy, from An Academy, from other open source MOOCs courses. Now, where is the system, or where is the authority, or in terms of our policy spectrum? Because education there's been the new education policy. It is in mindset, it's envisioning online, but in terms of policy gaps. So how do I recognize where is the equivalence for these people, the informal online training sort of spaces, which a lot of housewives, a lot of women, a lot of young people in the rural segments learning in the vernaculars from all kinds of sources. How do I integrate them into the formal certification accreditation, which is very important for my I say as a student, my confidence, my creativity, that I hold this certification from such and such school, from such and such university, which says that if I have learned so much, and I'm equivalent to a 10th pass or a 12th pass, A levels, O levels, bachelor's or master's, that portion is missing. So we need to embrace online wholeheartedly, not view it with so much regulatory constraints, and not burden the education system with so many regulatory constraints. I understand they are important, but if we are embracing these edtech companies from the entrepreneurial side, let's also embrace them equally with as much pride in the education side. That is my limited point.
Okay, clear point. I'd just like to ask Mr. Vonhoff a question, which is just trying to bring in the thought that you talked a lot about firefighting, right? To put out the fire which is burning, and a lot of entrepreneurs are getting burnt. But if I invite you to comment on a little bit a longer term perspective, which Maria introduced with sustainability, which Harbeen is talking about with education, what would you say to that? Will part of your how do you call it, negotiations with the government, how will you present that part of the story?
Yeah, sure. We used the example of the burning house most of the times when we explain what we are doing now. The house is on fire, and some people are trying to find out, as the house is still burning, who did it and where did it start, which is not my way of doing things. And the other ones are already talking about the new kitchen, which comes in place because of the rebuilding of the building. And that's difficult. On the other hand, we already knew, as Maria said, and as we heard in the earlier talks, that things are going to change. They were already changing. We already had digitalization as a perspective, also for those retailers that I now try to save, and also as it goes to social responsibility. Of course, we already know, and we should know, that we are obligated to do so and to invest in those long-term developments. If it's nature or, in the last case, equality between sexes, which I can never imagine how it's possible that it's still not there, because we are both 50% of the world population. So it should never be a problem, but it is, I know. And when we invest and when we talk with the government about getting out this crisis, we call it investing ourselves out of the crisis. That those investments, of course, in the long run, have to go in those avenues, as in sustainability, climate, social responsibility, digitalization, of course. But yeah, that's the perspective in the long run. We have in the Netherlands, of course, already some programs in place, and we will put them more in place for the period when we start rebuilding. And that's where our negotiations go, because of course we have those climate goals, and we support them fully. And we have international social responsibility goals with the SDGs, and we support them. And when we are asked what should we do and where shall we invest in, then it's in those areas. But for the short term, it's really making sure that we don't lose a whole lot of potential and people that could adapt, but not now at this moment when everything is on fire. So that's a little bit my struggle. Yeah. But of course, I sympathize very much with what the previous speakers said.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think it's a struggle for all of us. Maria, would you like to come in with some comments? And I want to add another question to it, because I know you are working also in the rural areas in India, and part of the COVID has been this big migration, like an exodus back to the villages with all the difficult consequences. So what does it mean for Netherlands-India business corridor when people want to go back to doing business? How should they look at labor shortage? And maybe Harbeen can also come in. 6 7 minutes left. Share your thoughts on this topic.
Thank you, Vidhya. Yeah, thank you, Jacco, for your feedback. The most important thing Martin mentioned also, Martin van den Berg, never waste a crisis. That's my point, because I really am 100% positive about your ambition to save jobs and to save businesses. The same we do with Women on Wings in rural India. As you know, I'm one of the co-founders. I'm not very operational active at this moment, but I'm still a board member, and for me it's also a very important activity. And what we of course do at the moment is not a growth of jobs, but save jobs. That's the same ambition we have in rural India as well, with all the social enterprises we work with. at this moment, to save jobs, to really well, have the earning incomes for women as we had before. And we change also with these social enterprises sometimes the business, because it's for the short term necessary. But we also have to focus on the long term and bring in new challenges, as I mentioned, around circular economy, in packaging or whatever. So with that challenge of saving jobs at the moment, that's my point. So how do we combine it with the sustainable challenges we have? And also for the Netherlands, it's very important not to hide us behind the dikes, because it's also in the Netherlands we have a challenge. And like Jacco said, 1 million people are now depending on the funds of the government, and that's not well, it's not healthy for the future, of course, but it's because we have a crisis. The same is in India, with the migration back to the rurals, because the jobs are lost in the cities. And we started Women on Wings also in rural India, because we saw the migration to the cities, and the social infrastructure of rural India is very important. And you see more or less the same on a much smaller scale in the Netherlands, that people move back to rurals of the Netherlands also, because it has also, and that makes it more clear now, because one positive impact of COVID is that we have less climate pollution. So the awareness of biodiversity and also the meaning of nature for people, well, maybe also in living conditions is better in rurals. Yeah. So, well,
we've learned a lot in the last few months, and there is a lot to learn also from the people who live in the rural areas. So thanks for that contribution. I'd just like to bring in Harbeen, I think, and then that's all we really have time for in this session. Is Harbeen, you're on the ground with, representing entrepreneurs who are on the ground. Working in India. So if there's anything that the government, as Jacco is, Mr. Vonhoff is arguing with the Dutch government or negotiating with them, what is it? What are the 2 things or 3 things, or maybe even just one thing that the Indian government can do to help these women entrepreneurs, especially in rural areas? You need to unmute yourself, Harbeen.
Yeah, I think e-commerce is the way, and I want to just respond to Jacco when he said about, yes, when the house is burning, you put out the fire. So I want to just share what we did to put out the fire. We have a large network, and we were supposed to launch our e-commerce platform, She Economy for Women, next year. But when the COVID situation hit, of course, it involves a lot of investment, and we are a free network. We don't really charge, but our family foundation stepped in, and we immediately launched, and the She Economy platform, sheeconomy.in, is live, and women from anywhere in the world, from anywhere, any village, any city, and anywhere in the world can upload their products. And I invite Maria's network to upload their products and find global markets to sell and scale. It's something we are launching on the 1st November. We are working, like, just finishing the final website and the platform. It's unique. It's first in the world, the largest, first ever platform, B2B, B2C for women and entrepreneurs worldwide. So that's what we did to put out the fire immediately. But you spoke about migration and all of that. I think, sorry, I'll come to the, government policy recommendation is, credit lines is something. There are 2 or 3 policy recommendations. I shared with you a PPT, which has a list of about 6 recommendations, but I'll just share one, which is credit lines. I think you do have some programs, the Q Reddits and the BBZ program in Netherlands, which provides for some funding to entrepreneurs. But I think for women entrepreneurs, if you go to a bank and ask for and say, I want to open a business and give me some funding, they'll just look at you blankly and they say, like, and of course you'll never get it. So I think we need a sovereign guarantee from our government for giving collateral-free loans loans to women who start a business, and it's something which is not very difficult with a political will. And thankfully, we have this political will. Since 2014, the number of entrepreneurs, the women's entrepreneurship has been increasing. It's something which is natural. We've done so many reforms. It's really a logical next step to plug in a crisis and to reboot the economy. It's not just a social sector thing because you sympathize with that, but economic necessity if you really want the women to be motivated, but by what they are motivated the best, saving their families and looking after their loved ones, which is a situation right now. And they'll do anything and take to digital entrepreneurship because the adoption access is very high. There's an openness. They will now at this time take, but you sort of need some funding to get your business going, whatever it is. And of course, then things like, make 30% sourcing by corporates and public sector undertakings, at least 30% from women vendors, open up those B2B opportunities. Currently it's 3%, reduce the GST slabs at every level by at least 3% for women, reduce the regulatory complexity for e-commerce. So there's a list of things I've given in the PPT, but yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I know you've done a fabulous time. Yeah.
No, I understand. And the GST for our audience is the goods and services taxes applied in India, but I'm sure everybody in this audience will probably recognize that. I think that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. And I think the point of credit lines and making capital available in the recovery period, Jaco also mentioned a couple of points about interest, waiving of interest in loans or tax pauses, etc. So all those. So I think that really brings us to a nice close of this session, a positive and also a message to the policy and the government, policymakers in the government. So I'd like to thank all three speakers very much for your contribution, your presence. And I hope to definitely continue this conversation on another occasion. So thank you very much. At this point, I think we've got something nice in store for you. A young entrepreneur in India who recorded this little story about his company. And this refers to the point Sudeep made very early on in our session today about how cybersecurity is going to be a very important part of our recovery. This is a recording, so your attention for 5 minutes about $0 security, an interesting startup in our corridor. I don't think we have audio. Okay, I'm afraid we are having some technical difficulties. What I'm going to do is suggest to my back office.
My message finds all of you in good health and happy. It's my honor and a great pleasure to be a part of Netherlands India Business Meet 2020 by the Netherlands India Chamber of Commerce and Trade. Just 12 days back from this very day last year, our website was going live for the first time. 1 year, 12 days later. I'm honored to have this thrilling opportunity to be able to tell you my story of how a college cybersecurity community became India's top 10 cybersecurity solutions providers, the best crowdsourced knowledge sharing community, and a home to many cybersecurity enthusiasts and professionals. Let me start from where it all began. It was my first year at college when I got associated with a research facility called the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Development Cell, which was a Government of India sponsored facility. By then, I was convinced that cybersecurity was my technology inclination, and my research in the domain was being well received. But there was one little problem. Not many people in my college were pursuing cybersecurity as an interest. 1 year had passed, and I was really in need of a peer group who could help me with my research or have an idea of their own. I started coaching a few people who seemed to be really interested in cybersecurity, and in a couple months' time, we launched a cybersecurity club in our college to foster intra-college cybersecurity community growth. We started finding bugs in various college platforms, but I made sure we never changed our attendance and kept on reporting them. Soon, small startups from our college wanted us to look into their websites. We did that. The word spread that there was a team of cybersecurity enthusiasts who could check your systems just for some pizza and cold beverage. And other startups from the state and beyond started to use our services for such an interesting service cost. Although the pizzas were tasty, we started working with organizations who were now paying us a little money for our work. We were working with some amazing startups back then. Some were building e-bicycles and asked us to ensure that the digital locking mechanism was secure. Some brick and mortar companies who were aspiring to go digital wanted us to check if their price parameters could be tampered. There were other digital marketing solutions who asked us to check their platforms. Some web development companies who wanted us to check for the security loopholes in their websites. The one thing that they all had in common was no organization we worked with had an in-house cybersecurity team. Startups with beautiful offices, amazing revenues, great funding were only focused on their core businesses, and no one had cybersecurity as a part of their growth strategy. Web development companies with quite some repute were only bothered about the UI and the UX. The businesses only focused on maximizing profits, expanding and investing in their core businesses. I identified no micro and small company wanted to invest in cybersecurity services or solutions until this very day they think that they are too small to get hacked. I saw an opportunity and we started a service called the STAS model. STAs, or the Security Team as a Service model. Now with this, all of these companies could subscribe to our services and have a team that behaved just like their in-house cybersecurity team for a fraction of the cost. Now we were expanding our team and started training more and more people. And we wanted to select the best from the lot and create the A-team and take it higher. But one fine day, the hype cycle finally ended. We realized it was a wonderful idea, but it was not working. We started from ground zero again. This time, we were going free with 48 hours testing deadlines, 24/7 support, and our reports were being verified by cybersecurity certified professionals. And in some time, we were back in business again. But this time, we had a registered parent company, a registered brand, and student communities function at multiple deemed universities around India. This was the time we decided we should raise some funding. We met an investor who wanted us to start a training and cybersecurity company. It was good, but 4 months down the line, $0 security was neither a training institute nor just another business model. Today, we are a crowdsourced and crowd-skilled cybersecurity community with over 3,000 active members pan-India and more spread across 11 different countries, learning cybersecurity for zero membership cost and zero mentorship and training fee. We have people from globally renowned brands learning with us. students who are paying portions of their university fees, and professionals changing their job roles and also contributing to the community. I believe that it is important for the SMBs to understand that powerful people are concentrating and collecting data through corporations and nations and creating their private data colonies globally. We aspire to protect SMBs' interests from the digital faces by commoditizing information security and driving a niche technology research-driven community. With $0 security, we are trying to create this new normal, a normal which is for all, which is by all. It has been a wonderful journey so far. An opportunity to connect with the colleges in Netherlands for Train the Trainer program can certainly help this initiative. Thank you all for your time and your patient hearing. Please connect with me at sohang@0dollarsecurity.in or over LinkedIn if you have a word of advice for me and if you want to contribute to the cause. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the story of Sohang from $0 Security, talking about building a platform where companies large and small can go to learn about how to apply cybersecurity in these times that is so required and so needed, and several speakers have underlined the importance of the same. I know we are sort of pushing on like a steamroller without any breaks, etc., that we'd normally have in a physical setting, but bear with us. And I would like to move on to our next session, which is our business session with a few business leaders talking about the practical side of how to shape the new normal with learnings from the business world. Before that, I think my colleagues will put up a screen through which you can again take part in a poll, online poll, should you wish, at Mentimeter. And while you're doing that, we can start looking at our next session. Our opening speaker is Mr. Victor Everard, who's the Deputy Mayor of Amsterdam. He needs no introduction. He's responsible for finance, economic affairs, Schiphol, Harbour, Zuidas, etc. Before becoming the Deputy Mayor, he was Deputy Mayor in Utrecht, where he was also responsible for the redevelopment of one of the largest redevelopment projects in the Netherlands, the station area. And to his credit, the development of the biggest bicycle parking of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you and bring onto the screen Mr. Everard. If he's in the audience, please do unmute yourself and join us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, welcome.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Everard, we'd like to hear, I don't know if how much of the earlier sessions you've followed, but we've had quite some positive stories about COVID bringing opportunities, and businesses are growing even or as usual and opening up new ways of thinking, etc., and that we should be optimistic and move on. And in the second session, we heard a little bit about SMEs who are still feeling the pain, right? And so from you, we'd like to hear, as a representative of the region that you govern, what is the situation there with businesses and how you see the new normal affecting that region, and what would be the role of city government in actually supporting businesses that are facing this change. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for this introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you. I'm glad and honored, of course, to kick off this session and share some thoughts with you from Amsterdam. Like so many countries in the cities in the world, our city is hit hard by the coronavirus and the necessary restrictive measures we have to take. And as you may know, before this crisis, our local economy was booming. Housing and real estate prices were high, at least relatively for the Netherlands, of course, and the city was flooded with tourists. Some people even saw a new golden age on the horizon. By contrast, these days, many businesses are struggling. Unemployment is rising, and the streets, especially in our historic city center, are largely empty. For an open, lively, enterprising city like Amsterdam, these are really sobering and difficult times, as you can imagine. We can only comfort ourselves with the thought that the crisis will be over one day. For now, we have to hang tight, work hard, and stick together. I stress stick together, because only together we can weather the storm. And we have plenty to look forward to. And because there's one thing we know, and there's one thing we have learned, and I would like to share that with you. We know that our foundations are strong. Amsterdam still has the favorable business climate, a great location in Europe, a large English-speaking talent pool, strength and innovation, and Schiphol Airport are attractive gateway to the world and a crucial engine for economic development in Amsterdam, the surrounding region, and the country itself. All that hasn't changed, and our city is ready to pick up things up where we left them after this crisis is over. But we have also learned something. We do not want to do the things exactly the same way as before. We want to be more resilient, more sustainable, and more innovative. Take tourism for an example. For the last couple of years, we have experienced the negative impact of low-budget tourism on our city and our inhabitants. We have an opportunity now to work on a new balance based on sustainable tourism and respect for the city's heritage and population. In businesses, these new ways of working together with organizations that are less dependent on air travel and office space. It's a time to fully embrace the era of trading without restraints in time and place, with innovative solutions for logistics and green mobility. And I would be very interested to hear also from you, all the participants, the thought on this. This crisis is a challenge for all of us, but it is also providing us with new opportunities. We want to build on the strong foundations, but we also want to explore new opportunities to grow in a smart and responsible way. I'm confident that we can do this. So let us prepare for it together with international businesses and expertise from all over the world, so we can get a jump start when the light turns green again. And hopefully that will be very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Everhart. Really inspiring words. And you underline the necessity for solidarity. And you are emphasizing that the foundations of Amsterdam region are extremely strong. And we know that those countries with good governance, good infrastructure, whether it was health or education or transport, were more successful in managing COVID. So these foundations really that have been built up in the region clearly have paid off. I want to just ask you one question, and then maybe we can move on to the next speaker, who is from Rabobank in India. We know that in times of crisis, governments, maybe not the Amsterdam regional government, but other governments may tend to look inwards. And Amsterdam is known to be a very international, outward-looking city. So in the post-COVID time, how will you gear yourself up to be a post-COVID business hub, still being attractive to international companies or governments which are possibly looking a little bit more inwards?
Okay, I can understand your question, but we can't afford to look inwards. Nobody can, and hopefully all my colleagues throughout the world won't do the same as you maybe mentioned that they would look inward, because we have to reach out to each other. As I stressed before, we need to have this cooperation. And I think the key focus in the Amsterdam region, because it's not only the city of Amsterdam, it's the real metropolitan region, we are seeing things and they are moving things ahead. If you look at the green city, the green electrical mobility, we are really making stuff forwards, and please join in. Also the open sustainable investments. We are looking for new opportunities and they are there. We are really with the green hub and the green aspiration we see from the European Union and the funds that are there. The metropolitan region of Amsterdam has the chance to really be the first and the forerunner of this green era in Europe. And I think we have the opportunity to step into that task we are asked for in Brussels, but also looking, for instance, for health, at the opportunity for the European Medicine Agency to get them into our region, and the spin-off of that, of new enterprises, of new techniques, of new bright minds, but also focusing on the real practical side of that. So you have a living lab in the metropolitan area of Amsterdam is really attractive also for new businesses. And we are focusing all over the world on people to invite them. And we have all kind of support programs, for instance, Amsterdam in Business, but also Startup Amsterdam as a real project. And also the institution of In Amsterdam, where we can support newcomers and support startups to grow and have their opportunity in our region. And this is combined with the attractive business cases we see around our area, combined with the universities, with the triple helix, for instance, for the artificial intelligence, which is also a booming business within our region. And of course, we need good connection, and we need good connection through this kind of opportunities by speaking by the internet, but we also have to have the facilities to meet again, and we are focused on that also. New ways of meeting together after the COVID crisis. It will be combined together, and I think the Amsterdam area is the real hub for the world to meet on all those kind of topics. And that's our way forwards, not only from the governmental side, but from this combination between new ideas, new technologies coming from universities within this triple helix, where we need entrepreneurs, where we need new innovative ways of making business, combined with a government which is open-minded to embrace this kind of opportunities. I think that's the way forward, and that's where we are living up to, because we have a long history in Amsterdam for this openness, and we will stick to that. You can count on us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think putting your shoulders under with the triple helix, good message. Let me thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to bring at this point in Paul Schuilwerve, who's waiting very patiently. It's late in India. We appreciate your time. He is the CEO, country head for Rabobank in India. And with his position on the ground, of course, he can talk extensively on what is happening and where the opportunities lie. Mr. Schuilwerve has got a long record of service in the Asia region, if I may say, Asia Pacific region, holding different positions. And without going into much detail, I'd just like to invite him to share his thoughts on what the new normal looks from the perspective all the way from India, and maybe also to request you to zoom in a little bit on the food and agribusiness, because we know Rabobank is associated with this strongly, and also because that is a critical sector in India. So if I may ask you, Paul, to unmute yourself and join us.
I think I'm unmuted, and first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Edith and Vidhya. It's a real pleasure again to be working together with NICCT on this very important theme. Now, probably good to start to share a little bit from what it's like to be on the ground, at least from the perspective of a financial institution. Actually, for us, this today is day 219 working from home. We have roughly 90-95% of our team that is working from home. Now, we only have a skeleton team of operations, IT, and some markets people coming in. And the only reason for that is the Wi-Fi connectivity in certain parts of Mumbai. But technically, we don't need to be in the office. We can pay, we can trade, we can deal with our customers from home. COVID is absolutely impacting our bank, and then I'm talking mostly about our people, because so far we've had 3 of our staff members who've been stricken by COVID. They're all recovering, and these were people that were coming into the office environment and working in our operations team. So it's real, it's out there, and it impacts the business. If we talk about from our clients' perspective, actually most of our clients are also still working at home or working in split office and operations arrangements actually since March. And if you look at what many companies also on the ground have already announced in India, if you think about some of the IT companies, the Googles, etc., they've already announced that they will be staying in the working from home mode until next year. For us, and certainly until the end of December, and the likelihood of this being extended is high. On the other hand, automation, digital transformation is not new. And if you look at some of the research that is out there, it's expected that automation, digital transformation will take an impact somewhere between 400 and 800 million jobs globally. It's nothing new, and it's been happening gradually over the last 30 years. And actually, during crisis, these things accelerate. And if you see also what's happening today, if you look at the markets, and particularly look at the tech stock markets, you see investors going into those markets. So those are also the opportunities that are clearly taking place. Another aspect I think we will see in our business, because we do want to go back to the office environment also for the social interaction. But what will be the norm, the new norm, is that at least a few days a week people will be working from home. And also, if you think about the teams in Delhi or in Mumbai, and also the large commutes, this is going to create more quality time for our people. So I think that is very important. What we see in the digital transformation is also that it's really taking place in the food and agri business. And we as a bank are a global leader in that business. But we've also via the Rabao Foundation, as well as from head office, have been looking very much at the Indian AgTech sector. And we see this as a great market opportunity. We expect that in the next few years, some 24 billion will be invested in AgTech globally. And if we look at the Indian market, the reports are that the next 2 years or so will attract something like 500 million in the AgTech sector, which I think is very important, because the AgTech will connect to the small farm holders in India, and there is many of them, and they will be able to connect far better to the market, to the consumer. There will be also abilities to increase production through precision agriculture, quality grading, and also in the procurement of goods. And the players are going to leverage on the enormous amount of data that will be collected in those markets. So I think it's a little bit about, I think, the impact that we see on the digital transformation. Your second question was also very much, what do we see in the agricultural sector? I mean, if you look at the Indian economy, then we've seen an enormous contraction, roughly 24%, and which is higher than some of the other developed countries like the USA, where it's 9% so far. Although if you look at France at 19%, Spain at 22%, India is not too bad. And we should also remember that India had a very tough lockdown. If you measure that, and the Oxford University has a measurement on government response stringency, and India was one of the strictest lockdown. So that has also resulted in an enormous drop in private consumption. The investment demand has dropped. But what we have seen is, since the unlocking of the market, actually since June, that we are seeing a rebound. We are seeing that the PMI index has increased to 52%. And also what we see in the agricultural sector, a 26% increase in the demand for agricultural and commercial tractors. The agricultural sector has also benefited, we have to say, this year also of a good monsoon. The monsoon in India has been very positive. And if you measure that against the long-term average period, we see actually a 9.2% increase. So that's also helped the sector to grow on average now something like 3%. So I think that's very positive. Another sector in India that is growing very well is the renewable energy sector. That's also a sector in terms of the energy transformation that we as Rabobank have some 10 years experience in. But we are, and this is also fits very much in the government strategy in India, had to grow that market. It will reduce the oil imports, which is very important for the Indian economy. Secondly, it will reduce the carbon footprint for India tremendously. And so this is really a sector that we see also will very much benefit in the future, and COVID is only triggering that more.
Let me stop you there and bring in our speaker. Let me stop you there because it's a great segue to bring in our next speaker, and then maybe we can have a dialogue, him commenting on the things that you just said. Professor Aravind, whose work it is really to work in the area of renewals, and he is professor at the professor of the chair of energy conversion at University of Groningen. And he is actually supervising research activities relating to the development of fuel cell systems, etc., and looking at renewables in a general sense. And also he is active in setting up the negative emissions program. And last but not least, I believe he's started a new initiative during COVID on transition to hydrogen as fuels. So I'd like to bring Professor Aravind in and ask him immediately also to comment on the opportunity that Paul is sketching out in the area of renewables. If you can focus your insights on that, that would be great. Professor Aravind, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yes. Am I audible now?
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. And organizers, many thanks for inviting and for giving this opportunity to interact with this Indo-Dutch community, business community. So we know that we are certainly in difficult times. But we are also importantly maybe learning to work together a bit more. So
Professor Aravind, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're not in your video is not on. If that is deliberate, that's fine with us, but we don't see you.
Sorry, yes. Now it's sorry.
Okay, welcome again. Please go on.
Thank you. Well, of course, we are certainly in difficult times, and also we are also learning to work together a bit more. So that's probably something positive too. And so we in academia, so this global solidarity emerging during these times of this pandemic. Probably it's important. Why? We are also worried a bit about the climate change, which might take place, maybe not in the far future, 10 to 20 years. So if you look at the most important scientific journal, the Nature, so they published an editorial. So Nature published an editorial in 2018, February, suggesting scientists to focus on negative emission technologies. Maybe circularity is not sufficient anymore, or carbon neutrality probably is not going to be sufficient, especially if the frequency of climate-related disasters increase. So this might happen. Maybe only, say, a small chance, but even if it's a small chance, if it happens, then there are chances that it's the life as we see on this planet may be difficult to continue.
So just to understand, Professor Aravind, with negative emission, you mean that instead of putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, you're actually taking them away?
Yeah, exactly. While still meeting all our energy requirements. So there are different technologies coming up, and so we need to be prepared. So 10 to 20 years, if the frequency of climate-related disasters, if it increases, then we need a plan. And when governments decide to intervene, if there is not enough knowledge, nothing will work. And we know that with new technologies, it takes, say, easily 10 to 15 years from lab to the market and lab to the society. And if we want to develop negative emission technologies, and if we have to implement them, whatever be the chance, in 10 to 15 years, we just need to start now. So this is actually the editorial from Nature. And then two of the most prestigious universities in the world, engineering universities in the world, Stanford and MIT, in 2018 came together with a joint position paper by two senior professors about negative emission technologies at gigaton scale and how to reach those targets, but still probably without presenting clear plans. Now, this is all about emission reduction and the importance of emission reduction. So in this, at TU Delft started the negative emission program, and I'm asked to set it up. And then we actually found an interesting development in India, in Kerala. So Kerala government has announced a carbon neutral Wayanad program with several million euro already tabled, budgeted. But the difference is, well, it's also planned as an income generation program for the farmers. So achieve carbon neutrality. Well, to achieve carbon neutrality, you still need probably negative emission technologies. So even though you don't go completely, say, negative emission society, you don't become a negative emission society, but you use negative emission technologies, some of the simpler ones to start with, like afforestation, etc., even to become a carbon neutral region. And what they have, their plan is to convert the coffee plantations to shade coffee plantations. So plant more trees in coffee plantations. And in such a way that the farmers will get additional income from timber. So, and then they came up with an innovative banking program to support this, a waste management program. So we saw this as an opportunity to work together and perhaps even to build a global model. So we have organized multiple workshops together, and we have built a team of universities from Holland. So University of Leiden is working with us, at TU Delft, University of Groningen, UNESCO, IHE, all are collaborating. And within Europe, we also have very good contacts. In Cambridge, Imperial College, TU Munich, etc., are also now working with us in preparing research plans, etc. So, or at least we are interacting about future projects and how to work together, etc. So
this project on negative emissions, which you say was also with the Kerala government or one regional government in India, is this something you see as developing into a larger project of interest to the India Netherlands with business opportunities?
Exactly. I think it's actually even of global importance. We are writing a paper, academics from India, from TU Delft, from Groningen, all together we are also writing a paper about why this is of global importance, not only for India and Netherlands. Because if you can actually convert emission reduction activities as income generation opportunities, this is a win-win situation.
Sure.
And of course, without proper science and technology support, the chance of such efforts failing is quite high. So that's where the academic community need to step in. But again, we have heard about triple helix already. So academia working together with government and industry to find solutions for the problems that societies face. So triple helix approach is very important when academia step in, working together with industry, working together with governments. That's what we are trying to achieve.
Okay, let me also then let me stop you there just for a second, and then we can come back to these points. I'd like to bring in also Piyush, who is joining us again from Pune in India. I would like to also congratulate Piyush on the fact that he has just been elected the Vice President of the Council of EU Chambers of Commerce in India just this week. He is with Philips. He is working in leading their mobile surgery unit as a business leader, and he's also heading a healthcare innovation center in Pune. Not just this, Piyush has had a stint in Europe, which he spoke about with great affection. I think it was in Finland. And he has some specific ideas on how Europe/Netherlands and India could collaborate in this new normal. So I'd like to bring Piyush in, and would you like to then respond to what some of the other speakers have been saying, Deputy Mayor Paul and Professor Aravind?
Sure. Thank you, Vidhya. So good evening, everyone here. Thanks for making me here, and looking forward to interact with all of you. So yeah, one angle which I would go to, Mr. Victor has indicated that we need to be together. I think that's a very strong point. If I really look at last whatever 7 months, one thing is common across the globe, that our enemy is common. We have one enemy, and that is where we are facing, and we have to be together. We have to fight together. We need to find out ways. Now, in that, of course, I represent Philips, but at the same time, very crucial factor through which my heart is the healthcare. During this time, this healthcare becomes so crucial to support our patients and our customers. And COVID, if I really look at it, has speed up the healthcare transformation in the right direction. If I talk about there are 3 main points which I would like to share with everybody. We move towards, and I could see that many of the speakers talking about that, we are moving very closely on digitization, very quickly. For example, the world is moving fast towards that. Online marketing, buying accelerated for consumer and B2B. That is number 1. The number 2 is telehealth. Now, being in India, of course, I'm leading global business. We have team in Best in Eindhoven as well as in India. But if I look at telehealth has become so popular even in India that the patient today, they hesitate to go to a hospital for any checkups, and they are taking services on the telephone or video calls. So this telehealth virtual care have experienced a huge surge in adoption. Consumers become more involved in their own health. And number 3 is rapid innovation. Crisis has a strong driver here for creativity and innovation, resulting in quick action, creative solutions, and collaboration. And there are many examples here. We have it. I'll give one example which we faced during this challenging time. We had a big challenge on logistics. Our suppliers were shut down. We didn't have stuff, moving on the road, and ships were stopped. At the same time, air flights were not moving on. So how do we do the business? And this is a global business. We move things from China to India to Netherlands and to North America. We collaborated with KLM, and KLM came forward to have a flight from Mumbai to Amsterdam. That was not in the charter, and they make it only for Philips to really make the business and successful. And I would say the key there was, one common factor was the healthcare. How do we help the current patients across the globe? They are trying to get the services for the equipment and doctor and surgeons. Yeah, so these are the points I want to add on that. And of course, I do agree with other speakers when they talk about it. So yeah, sure. Over to you, Vidhya. Yeah.
So thank you very much. I think it's very succinct that, you point out that we have one enemy and solidarity and collaboration is the key. And if I may say so, you point out that rapid innovation, quick action, collaborating together across borders for bringing these solutions together is the way forward, whether it's through telehealth or any other area or in the area of Dr. Aravind. So let me go back then to Paul maybe and ask him, in the agro-tech sector, which you had just started to describe a little bit in detail, I have noted that also that there have been quite a few new platforms that have come up, especially in the COVID period. So AgriBazaar and Crow Farm, which are B2B and B2B2C ensuring sort of 100% delivery, they say, in a disrupted supply chain environment, on order harvesting, etc. So tech in ag tech, as you mentioned, in agri-tech, where are the opportunities, would you say, specifically for India and Netherlands to work in this area?
Well, I mean, that vary. I mean, the ag tech sector, of course, covers a broad part of the agricultural remit, from precision farming, but it can also be in connecting consumers to farmers, or the markets. Also, the farm reforms in India will create more opportunities in this. So I think it's very varied, and it depends also very much on the cooperation. I think also last year we had a very successful trade conference, of course, in Delhi, also covering in the focus on ag tech and the tech sector in India. I'd also like to just make a comment what Professor made on cooperation. I think cooperation, and that's also very much also, Rabo is a cooperative bank. This is also very much what we believe in we cannot solve the food problem that we face globally, as well as the climate change on our own. And we need to do this with our partners, our clients, as well as also the university. So I would just also like to mention in terms of we are cooperating very closely with Wageningen University on their research, because we want to measure what the contribution is of agriculture to the climate footprint. Because these are things we need the data on. A consumer can only make the right decision based on the right data. Sometimes we also use an example. Would it be better from a sustainability perspective to buy a strawberry from the Netherlands, or should you buy a strawberry from Spain? Now, you could argue that in the Netherlands, in the greenhouse, there's more use of energy, whereas in Spain, the strawberry is just using the sunlight. On the other hand, the Spanish strawberry requires a lot of water, and water is much more scarce in Spain than it is in the Netherlands. So the consumer, in order to make right decision, needs data. And I think that is also where the data transformation is going to make a big difference, that we can make the right choices as consumer in what we buy and what the footprint is in terms of carbon emission in our daily lives. And I think we as a bank are very committed to making an impact, because for India, this is also important. If we don't solve the climate problem, and India is already a land where water scarcity is a big issue, it will impact a lot of people that are now also working in the food and agri sector. So this is why this is so important that we solve this collectively, and we need to do this across sectors with each other.
Thank you, Paul. You make a very important point about data, because I think throughout the pandemic, many companies, instead of jumping and pivoting, they've all been watching data very carefully. What are supply chains doing, et cetera, and it didn't come up in the earlier discussions, but I'm very, very glad you bring it up. Hugely important point, not just in the agricultural sector or for consumers, but also for business. I think that's key. I just want to also now ask Professor Arvind to comment a little bit on the education sector. We touched upon it a little bit in the last session. And I think you probably have noted some changes and impacts on the way education will be provided. Maybe there were students from India who were going to come to Groningen or others, etc., who now have to again make their own reset in terms of education. It would be great to hear from you, what innovation are we applying there to keep the stream of educational collaboration going?
Thank you very much. Well, this is a very interesting question. I think academia is changing already. Like there are so many online courses now, massive open online courses, the so-called MOOCs, available to students from all over the world. Several of these courses are free. Some universities are starting to offer already fully online MSc programs. But I'm not saying that this is the future. But of course, but this is something which is very important and we cannot ignore. And so online education, blended mode learning, this is all being looked at by the universities, and COVID and this pandemic is a sort of a catalyst. It's actually making online education much more popular. Now, but of course, there are also other changes. If you look at, say, in the past, you get trained in something in your 20s, start a career, work on that technology for 20, 25 years, become a supervisor and retire. That used to be normal. But the technology turnaround times are getting shorter. We heard about rapid innovation already. So rapid innovation brings in new products. And if the technology turnaround times are getting shorter, then you have to get trained again, well, once in 10, 15 years. So you might have to go back to universities. And it may not be that easy. So probably combining online education with a part of the learning face-to-face, blended mode education probably is anyway becoming important. But with the pandemic, people are finding it, well, it's okay to learn online. It doesn't mean that you can avoid teaching. It's very important to have universities with excellent research facilities, knowledge creation facilities, to gain that experience in an environment where learning is not only to acquire knowledge, but also to learn to use the knowledge, to come up with new knowledge, to come up with new designs, to come up with new solutions, to work together and create solutions together. So that's where universities are changing. So we do not know how COVID is influencing the universities. Some universities are finding it, well, there are far fewer international students in many campuses this year. So this is a change. Whether it will continue, no one knows. But online education is becoming important, and it's probably going to stay. For example, I'm in say hydrogen. I'm working in hydrogen fuel cells. So we, the community from Europe. So now we are actually developing one full online MSc program. So universities across Europe are able to offer this MSc program with say 40% of the courses, 20 to 40% of the courses from say, for example, from University of Groningen. We might be able to offer this MSc program with 20 to 40% courses coming from the ongoing regular programs, and say 60 to 80% recorded lectures from the best academics across Europe in their own specific areas. And
so the future is already here in that sense.
Exactly, and this pandemic is a catalyst.
Yes, yes, fantastic. So I think some real insights into how the face of education has already changed with your example. With the few minutes left, I want to then ask Piyush, Mr. Kaushik, to comment on, okay, so if education has changed, he mentioned that he's working in his innovation center in Pune on healthcare, but he's working with a team in Eindhoven and in India. So how has innovation fared in this? How is it changed? What does it look like in the new normal? And then after that, I hope that we can wind up with a comment from Deputy Mayor, which will bring us actually to the close of this session. So Mr. Kaushik, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Vidhya. Yeah, I think it's a very good question, especially during this challenging time when people are working from home. So one thing which I can say, the team is working across both the sites in Eindhoven and in Pune together to create new creative solution for customers, our patients, and our surgeons and hospital staff. Now, one thing comes out during this COVID time is what ideas we have, we are able to convert those ideas into the products and solutions. However, to really have more creativity around, there's also a key to have face-to-face interaction, because when you meet and have discussion around without online stuff and without virtual, sometimes what it takes a toll is the creativity and innovation. So for that, one thing comes out that team has to come back to the office. They have to have a discussion and bring the idea together at the coffee corner, or chatting together, finding out the solution of a problem. And when you are in the lab, you are designing